Hi, everybody. It's Matt and Tim.
Hey, you guys. Second in command. What's going on, Tim?
Well, today is the official beginning of the Patreon project.
The Patreon project? What does that mean? I'll tell you.
You want to tell us?
Today's episode is free, but after that, to get everything, listen to everything, watch everything on our YouTube channel, et cetera, you got to join our Patreon.
You go to patreon.com/secondincommand to sign up, and that way you won't miss an episode. The first episode of every month is going to be completely free wherever you get your podcasts, but after that, everything else, you got to go to patreon.com/secondincommand and become a subscriber. Please join us over there.
That'll give you access to all the archives and some bonus material we'll be recording every week.
Oh, yeah, we got some fun bonus material. Check that out.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Second in Command podcast. My name is Timothy Simons.
I am Matt Walsh.
We used to be a Veep Rewatch podcast, and now we do this. This is a
cinematic look at politics through the lens of two former Selena White House staffers.
You said that with such confidence.
Is that
I think
it?
It's an examation of cinema
and
politics in cinema.
Of politics and cinema
through the lens of two. We've been doing this for like 3 years,
and it's not a bit.
It's not a bit.
Introduce our guests.
The wonderful Simon Rex is here.
Thank you for being here, Simon.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's a very unprofessional opening, but it's typical to the show.
Okay.
Yes.
So just be ready for non-professionalism.
And you're probably asking yourself right now, you've been doing this for 3 years. It seems like you could have gotten a handle on that. And I assure you we have not.
Of the podcasting?
The tagline.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
You got to have a good tagline. And
Yeah.
I think our unprofessionalism is what separates us from the other podcasts, because we talked briefly before the show. There's a lot of podcasts out there. I think what makes us unique is our unprofessionalism, lack of rehearsal and preparation.
And what makes it unique is that it's two middle-aged white men. There's not enough podcasts of that.
How dare you? Well, you know what?
More of those.
Thank you, because the void... the media void is lacking perspective of middle-aged white people. That is such a good observation.
Thank you. That's why I'm here.
Now we have three, right?
Yes,
would you consider yourself middle-aged?
That's why I could say, yes, I'm 50 years old. I have the body of a 49-year-old, but I relate and I understand. And
thank you for joining the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
So one fun thing, Simon, before we get into like the meat of what we're going to talk about today, you were actually the star of one of the movies that we have covered before. You were the star of Scary Movie 3.
Yeah, that was like 21 years ago. It was 2003. Wow. It came out, so I guess we shot it in 2002, and that was like my first big like studio movie. And at the time, that was the Weinsteins, and that was at their peak. And
what happened to them?
I don't know if you heard of them. It's like Bob and Harvey. Harvey was a big producer. He got anyway. At the time, they were huge, and this studio had. You guys touched on it. I listened to the pod. People stop me all the time about that film. It's like such a popular one, but most people who don't understand is the Wayans brothers did 1 and 2. Then they had creative differences with the Weinsteins, and the Weinsteins had more power. So the Weinsteins said, okay, well, we're going to continue the franchise without you, with David Zucker, who did Airplane, Naked Gun, so many funny spoof movies. He kind of pioneered and created that genre. I guess Mel Brooks did kind of that, but really David Zucker did more like commentary on making fun of movies.
Yeah.
And so I auditioned for it, and I remember it came down to me and Ryan Reynolds, and I remember thinking, and Ryan Reynolds wasn't huge at the time, and I remember thinking, well, at least I made it down to the last 2, and then David Zucker later told me the difference is that I sold the rap part better because I played Eminem. And that I had a little bit more urban in me than he did. And that's what was the difference. And it was that specific. And we also made fun of Signs, and we spoofed a bunch of movies. But that was one of those ones where I was on set and I was like, wow, I'm here. This was an $80 million. I think the budget was around $80 million. And I remember it made it back opening weekend. That was like a sign to the times of how big those movies were and when people went to the movies. And it was just such a big machine that I just jumped into that. The cast, the cast was incredible. It was just so much fun, and you guys were talking about, I wanted to bring something up because actually it's funny. their whole thing is play it straight. You don't have to be funny. The situation is funny. There's a formula, and if you look it up online, there's what's called the Zaz 15 Rules of Comedy. It's Zucker, Abrams, Zucker. It's the two Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams, who just passed away. And they have a formula of 15 rules of comedy that you have to abide by to do their movies. For instance, and you'll see it in their movies, like if there's a joke going on in the background, like someone's being attacked by bees, you have to not do a joke in the front because that would negate that joke. And they have a whole formula. So they would have the rules on set. So while there's no improving, it was so specific.
Wow.
It was like, no, Simon, the line is ... da, 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 and you come up at the end. Like, it was very specific. There was no improv. So that was, I people always ask, and it's like, no, those guys know exactly what they want.
That was actually, I'm glad you said that, because that was a question I was going to ask, because I think we even talked about it at the time, like the precision with what they do feels like it can't, like improvisation it can be a huge part of comedies, but those specifically, it does, like they are going for such a specific target that it feels like if you're off by a millimeter, that's going to affect the whole scene.
And you're parodying an existing genre or sometimes a scene from a film. And so the camera choreography and the actor choreography has to be replicating something that's in people's unconscious already. So it really does have to be dialed in.
That's right. It's very much by design. They know exactly what they want. And then you're also like, well, you trust that they know what they're doing. So you're like, okay, whatever you say. So there's a lot of freedom in that. You don't have to think. You're just like, just do what they say. And it is funny and it works. But they also, they were open to ideas. Like on set, I remember there was like, I'd pitch jokes on set. Like there was a scene where I'm rapping and I get thrown off stage and I put my hood on and it's a KKK hood. Yes. And then, and the audience is like, ooh. And then I pitched the idea. I'm like, can I do a Heil Hitler? I'm Jewish. I can pitch that joke. And he loved it and put it in. So he was open to ideas, but then so that was the extent of improving. You had to talk about it first. You couldn't just do it on rolling.
Almost like it has to be written before we start rolling.
Exactly. And it was on film too back then. So it was like, you're not just burning digital. And there was like, I pitched a couple of jokes that I'm so proud of that got in. There was another one like towards the end where, I close the door and lock it and it's like no one's getting in now because I like bolt the door. Yeah. And then like someone opens the door the other way and they get right in. Like a joke like that. So I pitched, I felt comfortable enough, to pitch ideas that got in. So that was the extent of improving.
Can I, there is one of the things that really stuck out to me. I think there were 3 times that it happened in Scary Movie 3 where you kind of get thrown through a window. It's like a stuntman gets thrown through a window. That Texas
and then you pop
switch
up.
The Texas
of
switch.
you popping
you called
up.
It. That's what it is.
Did the timing of those is so like a half a beat earlier or later? Were you doing those a bunch of times?
Yes.
Okay.
Until he was like, until he laughs at the monitor, you don't got it. Like he has to let that's the
wow.
That's when you know you got it, is when you would hear David Zucker chuckle in this high pitched sort of childlike laugh, and then you felt really good because you got him to laugh, and then he's like moving on. So we probably did that. I mean, it's been 20 years, but we probably did that Texas switch, and it was funny because like they threw a guy out of a window, and then I pop up. And, David would say, just like you, he's like, no, you need to come up like half a beat sooner, and it's that specific.
Had you always been like in a comedy world? Was that a place where you were comfortable with? Like, what was your background going into that?
Yeah.
I just grew up watching those movies as an only child. I remember when the VCR came out. I'm really aging myself here. I remember when the VCR came out and I'd borrow it from my mom's friend, bring it home and record Mel Brooks movies, Airplane, Naked Gun, and I'd just watch them over and over and over. That I think it just got ingrained into me because I just understood it, but I never really like I never was in the theater as a kid or anything like that. It's just like when I fortuitously fell into acting, I'm like, oh, I know this stuff so well. I grew up like watching it over and over as a kid. It's like ingrained into me, specifically that kind of humor, So that's sort of why I think it works.
You absorb the structure and the form
as a kid.
Yeah,
when your brain is so malleable, and you're just like, that's when you should learn a language. When you're 8, I was learning that language, and it was just. And it's,
I remember I used to always know street jokes. Like people would just tell me jokes, and I that's kind of how I learned comedy.
Oh, really? Like
weirdly, just old men. I remember the first joke I wrote, which is what's another name for a grandfather clock? an old timer.
Oh, that's good.
That's
So,
a
like-
good joke.
Yeah,
That's
but I
a good
wrote
joke.
that, and it's
Yeah.
like Dixie Riddle Cup style. I'm dating myself.
Yeah.
But those kind of things are just like my dad's friends would tell me a joke that was relatively clean, but I would always absorb it
Yeah.
in a way that you were absorbing film. And
Yeah.
then obviously like VCR stuff too.
Right.
But it is
Yeah.
true. You absorb the form, and you're sort of learning, even though I think because you cared about
I
it.
cared about it, and I had to entertain myself, and it was not by design.
Are you
like,
an only
oh,
child?
Yes, I'm an only child, so it was my best friend, was just like watching these over and over and over. So it just, I think it just happened that way. And I actually still write bad dad. No, sorry, I don't mean that's a bad
That's-
joke.
no.
But like
No offense.
I still write. I have a list of bad dad jokes that I write to this day because I think that's just how my brain works. I always
You
try
should
to
meet
find
my friend
the
John
joke.
Stern.
Yeah, he's
He
good.
does the same thing.
I have a whole list of them that everyone groans at, and I just love saying bad jokes. And I tried stand up for a while, and the whole bit was that I did really bad jokes, and then there was an awkward silence, and then they laughed at how bad it was. That was kind of the bit, but then
Yeah.
I realized I'm not a comic, and that's okay, but I tried.
I could honestly see the old timer joke being in Scary Movie 3, like opening the door and being like, "Hey, old timer," and then they just like kind of pan to the grandfather clock, and then they just move back. Like that's the joke that you could see in there.
Well, yeah, they even had one like that. It was like, oh, Jesus, and then they cut to me holding a Jesus statue. Like they have that exact kind of joke, like it's really on the nose. But I mean,
Are you in the melee in the Oval Office when like they're just punching people in the face?
no, I'm not in that scene. No.
Talk about tightly choreographed.
Oh.
That was like really impressive.
Tell us about Leslie Nielsen.
Oh yeah.
So Leslie Nielsen, a couple funny stories. He would walk around with a fart machine, but like the one that you push your finger into like the silly putty, and there'd be like a woman at Crafty bending over to get something to eat, and he'd walk by her and make the fart thing, and then look at her in disgust and walk away, and everyone would laugh on set. And he just did it. He was 74 years old or whatever, and he was doing fart jokes on set, and it was so funny because like. I remember David would reintroduce him to somebody that he had worked with before, but he was kind of senile at this point. So David would say, "Hey, Leslie, you remember?" And it would be like one of the writers or a producer. "You remember so and so?" And every time he would say, "Oh, yes, how could I forget?" Because he has no idea who the person was, but he said it perfectly every time. So it was like a bit. And I was just like, I can't believe I'm working with Leslie Nielsen. And it's just like, and of course, Anna Faris is a genius. I
Yes.
just watched her movie Smiley Face, which I'd never seen. Go watch that if no one's seen it. It's like a 2007 random comedy about her being a stoner. She's like Madeline Kahn, brilliant. Like a beautiful
really is.
woman who's fearless and funny is so rare.
Yep.
And so to work with her, and I mean the cast, I remember seeing Kevin Hart on set, and I remember he wasn't Kevin Hart yet, the big actor. And I remember having the thought when I saw Kevin on set, thinking, this guy's going to be a huge star.
Really?
I could tell by the way he worked the room, and this is a compliment to Kevin. He went up to everyone and talked to him, introduced himself, was so happy to be. He was such a good social. I'm like, oh, this guy's not only got the talent, but he's got like the networking ability,
Social,
which is a big part of it.
Yep.
I'm like hiding in my trailer between takes, like kind of awkwardly, and he's in. I was like, oh, he's gonna go far, and he did.
I just recently showed our son that like one of the weekends of the fires when we were hanging out with one of our family friends. We showed our kids Naked Gun for the first time, and I am happy to report it played like fucking gangbusters.
It doesn't get old. It
doesn't
age.
get old.
It's classic
it's classic
comedy.
comedy, which if you look at like early 2000s comedies, they don't hold up a lot of the times. There's something weird about the timing, but those movies, and that's a testament to David Zucker, it's like that formula is just funny. Yeah, they're brilliant.
Did you have a sense? This is like maybe a softball question, but or something they've asked before of you. Did you have a sense like, oh, this one's special? Like, because the scary movies can dip in quality. Yeah. Obviously, they've made a bunch, and this felt like a complete reinvigoration. So when you were making it, or maybe when you saw it the first time, you're like, oh, this is.
Yeah.
Did you kind of know?
Yeah, I think I did because, and this is back in the times also when before DVD and pirating or online pirating happened. So when you'd premiere it, you would do a world tour because it would come out in different countries at different times.
You did that.
It didn't have to come out the same day around the world because they weren't pirating yet, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So we did an American premiere, then we did a European premiere, Rome, London. It was just like it came out around the world at different times, and it was interesting to see how that comedy worked in different countries because it's universal. But what's happening now is that comedies aren't being made as much. I had a meeting at Amazon Prime recently, and I asked them, what's going on with comedies? Why aren't they being made? And they explained to me that, well, they don't get the jokes in Russia and China and in South America. They get them in English-speaking countries, which are pretty limited. So if we make a horror movie, that will appeal to the world, so we make more money. But comedy, and as well as podcasts and comics, there's more ways to get comedy now than ever. So comedy movies aren't being made. Back then, those kind of movies are funny around the world because for whatever thing David Zucker did, it tapped into something funnier than just people that understand like English-speaking American comedy. Because the physical comedy, whatever it is, it worked around the world.
Did you notice in these different countries certain parts that might have played better? Like as a sociological study?
Yeah, I probably did. I just don't remember.
Yeah, it's okay.
I just remember going to Tokyo and them freaking out over a scary movie. I'm like, wow, they get this in Tokyo.
Yeah,
like,
and they loved it.
Yeah. It was just really interesting to think how. Yeah, that's why those movies need to be made more than ever. And I think they are doing a new scary movie now. But to your point earlier, I remember Scary Movie 3 was really, I thought was not just because I'm in it. I was in 3, 4, and 5. So I can say this, but then they progressively got worse and worse. And by 5, Anna Faris was no longer attached, and it lost the magic, and it just kind of went.
Yeah.
So they stopped making them. But I think 3 was sort of the peak. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah,
that was
fell
sort
off
of
a little bit.
Yeah, but that's subjective. Some people might say 2 was really. Chris Elliott who's my favorite, by the way. I think he's my favorite comedic, fearless actor. Get a Life was like my favorite show as a kid.
Yes.
And he was in Scary Movie 5, and I got to meet him, and I'm obsessed with Get a Life. And he was in 2. I think he was in 2 also with the little hand. That people really love that bit. I don't know if you remember in Scary Movie, he was like the guy with the little
Tiny hands.
Tiny hands. So it's subjective.
It's funny. I haven't seen it, and I'm already laughing. Chris, little tiny hands. That's funny.
It's really funny, and he's like stuffing the turkey and being a weird, creepy guy. You could find on YouTube, I'm sure, just that scene. But yeah, some people like other ones more than others. But I think like critically, or like if you were to go online and look at Rotten Tomatoes, I think 3 is the one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I would agree with the consensus on that. 3 is really the one.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, so we'll pivot to our main focus of the day. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
Thank
of
you.
course.
Oh my God.
I love hearing these stories. So we're talking about Civil War, which was released in April of 2024, so pretty recently. We always give it to the guest to choose the movies. Why did you choose this one?
Well, you gave me a list, and that was the one that jumped out that I, to be quite honest, that I feel like I could remember enough to talk about because I saw it recently. I went to the premiere, and I liked it. I didn't love it. I liked it. And you said you loved it, and you said, great, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So let's get into it.
All right, awesome. So we're going to pass it to historian Walshy, who's going to give us sort of the lead up of the year before it was released, which will be, a little more effective if we're talking about something in 1945 and we want to set that, do a little place setting. But
oftentimes this is like reminding us what was going on in the country, but this was only like a year ago. But I guess when you hear these factoids, Simon, think of something that sort of truly colors how the audience or what the public was sort of looking at or in their consciousness. Like we just did a movie with like the OJ trial, and it was like, oh my God, that was everything. Like so, it's almost like what was the lens of the country when people sat down to watch Civil War? So going on and for the year leading up to its release, because we always take the year before.
Okay, so it's 23 to 24.
Yeah,
April,
23 to 24 April,
which is
roughly.
which caveat here or time in the last few years because of COVID and everything just seems like a twilight zone. So this will be interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what I was up to. I was either striking or getting an injection for a pandemic.
That's right.
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You also give blood.
I did give blood yesterday. I did. Okay.
I just want to shout out that Walshy did a really good thing.
You're a good man.
Yeah.
Decent man. Thank you, both of you. So Trump was getting indicted on 91 counts of felony over that course. Hamas attacked Israel. That was a big deal. That was a world war, basically. Cheaply, remember the cheap Titanic submarine that went missing?
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
that's right.
yeah.
The
Those
rich guys
poor
that went
people.
down. Yeah.
Those poor people.
The rich, poor people.
No, those pitiful people. Not,
The
they were wealthy.
Right.
I have,
Gotcha.
Poor choice of words. Remember that weird Chinese surveillance balloon that was floating over Montana, and they had to shoot it down?
Okay.
We had 2 hurricanes, Hillary and Dahlia, that were monster. Tucker Carlson was fired from Fox News.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay.
Just post settling of that, those voting machines things that Fox got sued
oh,
about.
like the Dominion
Yes.
stuff? Yeah.
Right.
A couple days after they paid their lawsuit or he was kicked out of Fox News. Remember the moment when Damar Hamlin almost died on the NFL
That's
football
right.
field?
God, yeah.
That's right. And now he's playing again healthy.
Yes. That is weird to watch him.
Yeah.
India surpassed China in population.
Oh, I didn't know
as a
that
country.
one.
I didn't
know
either.
that one. So what's it, like 2 billion or 2?
I didn't look up the number, but that's pretty mind-blowing.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because together they combine for more than half of the planet. What are we at? Like 8.1? I think the population right now is 8.1,700,262,032, but I'm not sure.
And how many of those people have podcasts?
Actually, wait, someone just died.
Okay.
Shit, someone's just born. Okay, we can do this all day.
How many have podcasts?
Half of that.
4 billion?
And half of them are middle-aged white men.
This is something I thought was interesting. Do you remember how the French were so pissed off about the pushing back of the retirement age from
Oh, that's
62?
right.
Yeah.
There was like national protests
That's right.
and like police had to be out on the
right.
streets. They were really angry about going from 62 to 64.
That's right.
That happened.
I just want to throw in here that we had filmed the Veep pilot and we were doing like these 2 weeks of rehearsal in London. And my wife, was 3 months pregnant. We were like just at that period of time where we could like start telling people. And we like flew over. We took the Channel over to France and we like spent the week in Paris before going back to London. And I remember that I needed to get like some sort of document for the return customs trip from HBO. They sent it to me. They were like, you got to get this printed out and signed. And it was a Sunday. And as an American, to be in France in the summer when basically they're like, yeah, everybody's on vacation, number one. Like, we don't fuck around.
Right.
Everybody's on vacation.
Yeah.
But also on a Sunday, you could not find a place to print this thing out. Because we were like staying at
Wow.
a friend's house. We went all over the city. And in a way, I kind of love
Right. Yeah, yeah.
that the French are like, oh, 2 years later in retirement, we're going to burn this
Yeah.
bitch
Yeah.
down.
Yeah,
Sundays, fuck you. We're
Yeah.
not working. Like, it
Yes.
can be like inconvenient,
Right.
but you gotta respect it.
I do, and it's almost like when you're in Italy and you want to get lunch, and they're like closed at lunch time, like weird hours, and the siestas in Spain. Like I get it. Like at first you're like, oh, and then you realize, oh wait, they're onto something here.
They
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, yeah, we're the new ones on the block, America.
Yeah, they're not constant slaves to capitalism,
That's right.
essentially.
That's
They have
right.
these boundaries like, no,
That's right.
I get 5 weeks where
That's
I'm
right.
out.
That's right.
And you cannot take that from me. So, yeah.
Which kind of ties into Civil War. We're the new kids on the block, America. We're what, 250 or 350 years old?
270?
270?
Yeah.
So we're the new young
It's
cocky
funny,
kids
we're
on the
so
block.
good at the population numbers.
I'm really
And
bad with how old America is. 17,
76.
18, 19. Yeah, 250. Okay. 270-ish.
I don't even know.
Anyway, we're the new kids on the blocks and Civil War. This all ties into this movie and where we're at right now. And that's why this movie I thought was one to talk about, because it's kind of what's sort of could happen.
Yeah, it is relevant. A couple more factoids. Prince Charles is the first new monarch in 70 years. So think of that. Like, that's such an antiquated system, obviously. And she was in place for 70 freaking years.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's like old world stuff still lingering in our like
That-
That's
news.
when America was 200 years old. Sorry. Sorry.
just dunking on everybody with your math.
That's right, baby.
Your math sense helps. I find it comforting because now I
Okay.
understand.
Okay.
I could be wrong about this, but when we were over in London, like all the mailboxes there have to have the royal crest or the Queen's crest on them. So when King Charles or when Prince Charles became king, they have to change all that shit. They have to like switch out
Right.
all the
Right.
mailboxes because they have to have the the
Right.
crown's crest on them. And when the crest changes, so for like 70 years for her to be queen, probably saved a lot of money on mailbox.
Does the
changes.
crest have his likeness in it?
No, it's like the official seal or something
But
like
it
that.
changes. The
But
king gets to create his own crest.
I think it has to do with the name.
I think they just add a
the
penis.
letters.
They just add a penis to
They
it.
put a dick and balls on it. Yeah.
It'll
But
have his
still,
initials.
that's a big job. There are
Yeah.
a lot of
That's
mailboxes.
a lot
What's
of
that,
little
Aaron?
penises.
It'll have his initials.
It'll have his initials. Okay.
Okay.
And dick and balls.
And dick and balls.
We'll validate that. I'm pretty sure you're right, though. It needs dick and balls.
Okay.
Sort of related to the tumult in this story of the movie, that authoritarian leader Erdogan began his third decade of power in Turkey.
I'm lost on that one.
Okay, doesn't matter.
Okay.
The head of the Wagner Group, remember that guy?
Oh,
Yevgeny Prigozhin?
His plane went down or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
The challenger.
Oh, that's
He was
right.
the challenger to Putin.
Yeah.
He was marching on Russia, and then he said, you know what? Our march for justice is over.
Right.
We're friends. He shook hands with Putin, and then 2 months later, mysteriously
Yeah.
goes down in a
I
plane.
mean, I don't mean to laugh.
or as Dave Mandel would say, he fell out a window.
Yeah, he fell out. So you know how like every Putin critic always ends up falling out of a
Yeah, of
window?
course.
Dave Mandel, who show ran Veep for the last 3 years, whenever like a Russian political person dies, he talks about like no matter what the circumstances were, they fell out of a window.
Yeah, like I think for that one, he said he was pushed out of a window on that airplane.
Yeah.
Right.
And then as far as pop culture, I just sort of looked at the top 10 and grabbed 5. The movies that were big for that sort of period: Barbie, Oppenheimer, After the Fall, Zone of Interest, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Okay.
Will you say those one more time?
Yeah. Barbie, Oppenheimer. So you got your Barbenheimer.
Saw those.
After the Fall. Remember that?
Yes, saw that.
Zone of Interest.
Saw that.
And Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
That was the cartoon one.
Yeah.
Didn't see it. So
Really
I saw
good.
4 or 5.
Yeah.
So I would say right there, and this does kind of dovetail into what we're talking about, that Zone of Interest, Oppenheimer, and Barbie are all movies examining the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in their different ways, they are examining. So it feels like there is an appetite for that kind of work, a work that examines where the country is, whether it's from a historical perspective of Oppenheimer, like sort of modern feminism in Barbie, and then like looking back at the Holocaust, but connecting it to the current world. Like
Right.
it seems like there's an appetite for this, especially around the time that Civil War.
And then the top TV, last category, top TV shows. Again, I looked at the top 10. It's subjective, but I just pulled the ones that were interesting to me.
Let me guess.
Yeah.
Can I guess one?
Yeah.
Succession?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else you want to guess?
Can you just give me a network?
Oh, I believe FX or
Squid
Hulu.
Games.
I didn't know because it was in pause.
Okay.
FX or Hulu? Big comedy, supposedly.
Yeah. A big comedy on FX.
Supposedly.
Hulu? Supposedly. Okay.
Supposedly.
Atlanta?
The Bear.
The Bear. That of course. Yeah.
Beef,
Beef.
really good.
Yep.
NFL Sunday Night Football was one of, I'm just saying that is dominating the ratings. And then the other one that dominated ratings was that show One Piece, which was
Based on an anime.
live action
Never
version.
saw that.
I didn't either, but it was just sort of
Okay, so now I'm in
so
the
now
realm.
you're sitting
I'm
down.
here. I'm
You're
realm.
in the soup of that period
Okay,
of time.
I'm there.
and now you're sitting down to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Any of those stories seem to like dominate your mind after that little visit?
God, well, the darkness of sort of the Russian prisoners being sent to in mass to die, and the guy what's his name again who died in the
Wagner.
plane?
Yevgeny,
The Wagner group.
Yeah.
It's pronounced Wagner.
Wagner.
Okay,
I'm very
don't
sorry.
come on, man.
Wagner.
That to me was just so dark and interesting, and just like I remember that.
Yes.
that one just being interesting to me.
It's very in sync too with this movie.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, because war is so hard for me to wrap my head around. I just can't even fathom, which is to dovetail into Civil War, which I thought what I did like about it was it really kind of put you in like the seat of it, the way it was shot and the sound design and a lot of the things about it made you really feel like, whoa, this is what it would be like in America if there was something going on, and the fear of the Civil War being upon us that's still kind of there, and how now your enemy isn't Russia or China, it's like your neighbor, and seeing the divide in sort of my social groups and how people split up, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all, but I part of me is like, well, if anyone was to try to take America down, a good way to do it would be to divide us and make us against each other, which isn't impossible to imagine. So it was just a very surreal time, even before the year you just discussed, into now is this weird time of division that is just very bizarre.
Yes.
Yeah.
One thing. So I am generally, I love this movie. I'm just stunned by it. I've seen it 3 times.
Okay.
Stunned by it every
Maybe
time.
I need a rewatch.
And I think that one of the most amazing things about it is I'm sure there are other movies that have done this, but for someone to be able to create something in a moment that so
Right.
encapsulates
Right.
the moment without being, and I think this was like, I think a complaint for a lot of people that saw it was like, a lot of people were like, and again, maybe because of the way it was marketed, it was sort of marketed as like a big action Civil War movie, and that's not what this movie is.
Right.
That it's really hard to, inside of a moment, almost have like a view looking back. I don't know how he was able to do that, because I
Yeah.
just find it incredible that he was able to really sort of distill down all the things that could have brought us here while still living inside of it.
Yeah, I was surprised at that too. How quick, I guess, if you know that time of feeling this sort of unrest within America was over during all of COVID. So he probably jumped on it pretty quick and was like, okay, he's probably smart enough to be like, well, this isn't going to end anytime soon. You know, this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
So to his credit, yes, to do something within the actual time as you're living it and walking outside and feeling that
Like
Yeah.
to be able
He
to
has
have
like an-
perspective on it.
Well, he has a dystopian view of reality. Like he made Ex Machina.
Yeah.
He's written books.
the beach.
With exactly. With a
yeah, he-
similar sort of futuristic opinion of where we're headed.
He
Yeah.
wrote 28 Days Later. He didn't
Yeah.
direct it. Danny Boyle directed
Right.
it.
Yeah.
But that is also like a collapsed society. Like
Yeah.
he does live in that world.
Post-apocalyptic, not so distant future.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very good at that. I guess my only thing with it, and I did like the movie. I guess for me, I left feeling a little like maybe it was like what you said. I expected something else, and I just left it feeling like I wanted something more. But then maybe looking back and wanting to watch it again, that's what's so good about it. It felt like a bunch of really cool moments and scenes as opposed to like one big thing. And then I guess the ending kind of left me feeling a little flat. And I guess you have to suspend disbelief. Like, would the president really be like hiding under the White House desk? But that makes for a good movie, right? You know what I'm saying? Like some of it just felt a little like unbelievable towards the end for me. But yeah, that's most movies. So I'm probably just being overly analytical.
Here's
Well, Alex Garland, come on in.
yeah,
Hey,
Alex Garland. Simon
Defend
has
your
some
movie.
notes.
Defend your movie to Simon.
I'd love to
please.
work with you.
Yeah, all of us actually. All of us are
So,
open to working with you.
One thing that I kind of love about this movie is that, like, when I had friends that, like, we went like with a big group of people to go see it, and I had some friends who walking out were like, I wanted it to be more specific, but I think all of the specifics are in there. He just doesn't linger on them or point
Yeah.
them out too heavily. Like, but to that point, there is
So sorry.
a moment
So sorry.
we were talking about.
That was so rude.
The
My ringer went
professionalism
off.
is off the charts.
I know that feeling you have right now, and I sympathize.
Thank you.
Empathize?
Empathize.
Okay.
Sure.
I'll
take them both.
That earlier, and oh my god, I'm forgetting the character's name, but the sort of the older reporter that's on
Joe? Is that Joe? No, Joel is the
Joel is the younger one.
That's
Stephen
offensive.
McKinley Henderson, who plays Sammy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sammy.
He says something when he's talking to Joel about the interview. He was like, so like, what are you going to ask him? And they start going through all those questions. He says like, all these strong men.
Yes.
They like Gaddafi. He rattles off a few Gaddafi.
Ceausescu.
Yeah,
From Romania.
Bless you.
The
Sorry. So stupid.
Worthwhile. Worth it.
he rattles off all those names. He rattles off all those names, and he says they will always disappoint you in the end.
Yes.
They are always much weaker than you think they're going to be. And one thing that I think is really interesting is that you really only see Nick Offerman as the president, who is referenced as, like Sammy does like a little bit of ground bricklaying. What do you call it? Pipe laying, where he's
Yeah.
like, Mr. President, why did you decide to have a third term? Why did you decide to? What is your feeling on the airstrikes using airstrikes on
civilians.
American citizens?
Right.
Yeah.
You really only see him in that beginning and the
Yeah.
end. He is just kind of a specter.
Right.
And I do think it really works when you finally get there and he's just like a weak man
Yeah.
begging for his life because he thought he was going to be able to take power and he wasn't.
Right.
But ultimately, it's a weak man that tries to do that.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
I did like about it too, it's like we in America we always see it's always these other countries, not these Western countries, that this could happen to, and how democracy is actually so fragile, and we've never even thought about that till recent times. It's like, whoa, this could all come crumbling down.
Yes.
That's pretty crazy, and that's what I liked about it was like, and then you start thinking, you're like, as you get older, at my age, I'm like, wait, the Civil War in America, that wasn't that long ago.
270
No.
years, I think. Oh wait,
No, the
no, I'm
Civil
not.
War.
It was
Yeah,
it was in
1865
yeah,
ended.
it was, and that's not that long ago. You start doing the math, and then you're like, anyway. So you just
That
realize
one's 150, roughly.
Yeah, which
So-
isn't that long ago.
Yeah, yeah.
When you get to be older, you realize, wait, if you swing the pendulum back from the year I was born, 50 years, that's all but World War I and World War II. It's like just I don't know. It starts.
Right, like our
It could
grandpa's
happen. It could
grandpa
happen.
might have
Right,
touched
right.
that or something.
If the average human is 75 years old, 2
Yeah.
humans ago that happened.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And there is something that I kind of love about the general message of this being. It's not. It is definitely not an apolitical movie, but it never tells you. It never says Republican,
Right.
Democrat.
No.
It never
Right.
says any of that. But it is not an apolitical movie. But there is a big sense. I remember the first time that when I walked out of it the first time, one of my takeaways was this idea of like, oh, you fucking think you want this because there is all this talk. I mean, actual talk about Civil War. You have those guys in Michigan doing like their little.
We're storming the Capitol.
We're storming the
Right.
Capitol. You have those guys in Michigan planning to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer and like doing their war games in their minivans.
Yeah.
Actually talking about Civil War, and it is
They
like a
want
thing
it,
of like
yeah.
this is what it is.
Yeah.
This is Canadian money being worth more.
Right.
One of the most chilling moments in this movie for me is when they go to see those guys that are being hung up
Yeah.
at
the gas station.
in the gas
Yeah,
station.
that was a great scene.
And the man actually says, I actually know this guy.
Yeah.
We went to high school together.
Yeah.
He didn't talk to me very much.
Yeah.
So we're like, it is
Yeah.
a fucking shot across the
Yeah.
bow of you think you want this.
Right.
The world does not stay the same, but also with a civil war. It is explosions everywhere. It is infrastructure not working. And this is a little bit prescient. Right after Sammy dies, there is an out-of-control wildfire in a forest. There is nothing that is there is no infrastructure to stop that fire.
Right.
That was a thing of like, you think it's cute? They even show you a guy in a tire. She has that line about like, I tried to go out in the world to take pictures of this, to warn our country that this is not what you want. They show that guy being set on fire. And in an American's brain, it is that happens elsewhere.
Right.
But now it's happening here. And I do think there is that thing of like, this is not what you want.
Right.
You think that this is like a cosplay thing, but we're going to show you what an actual civil war in America means.
Yeah.
And to that end, it is a deeply unsettling movie.
It is, because what also kind of what you're saying, like we haven't really thought about something like this until recently.
Yeah.
And what the movie does so well is it shows how pockets of consistency are still happening. Like they go in that weird town where the shops are still open and like they're acting like nothing's going on. And in the beginning of the story, when they're in New York, they're in a hotel, people are celebrating and drinking champagne, like Paris is falling. So there's these weird pockets of normalcy still happening, but like she's in a hotel and in the distance you see a fireball, a mushroom cloud of fire go in the sky, and yet there is some consistent normalcy, although as they go into the heart of darkness, it gets darker and darker, and then we're exposed to more consistent abnormality. But what I loved is like, it's like during the fires, like I was in the valley and relatively my life was not affected. I mean, I was terrified and we were ready to go, but we were blessed that we weren't in those two fire zones that were so close. And so that's how it seemingly would happen. Like in reality, it would be, there'd be warring in like, I don't know, Vegas, and then there might be warring in San Francisco, and LA might be fine for a while. You know what I mean? And so we allow ourselves to be able to ignore it in a way that like, oh, maybe it won't come our way. And you see that in the story really well. Like people are kind of ignoring it and maybe hoping it won't come our way.
Right.
When
I thought that was really well done.
when the guy at the hotel who's like working at the hotel says, sometimes we lose power and it may disrupt your journey. It's like, customer service, the fucking kind of bullshit things that customer service people have to say are surviving in a civil war. You may have a disruption in your journey. And she's like, my room is on the 10th floor. And he's like, it's up to you. You know what I mean? Like the way that the way that people try to maintain normalcy is all in there as well.
Yeah.
I had during COVID, I moved to Joshua Tree before COVID. Coincidentally, not by any smart move, I bought an off-grid shipping container house in the middle of nowhere a month before COVID happened.
And can we just say that is verifiably fucking cool?
It's really
it's
cool.
like a really cool
it's
thing.
well, it's cool.
That.
Yeah, it's cool because I just after 20 years in LA, I was like, I need some peace and quiet. I need some nature. I need to be under the stars. I need to get away from this human zoo that I've lived in my whole life, being from San Francisco, New York for years, LA. I'm like, I just need something else. So and it's surprisingly affordable in California to get a little piece of land in a tiny little shipping container house, water well, septic tank, solar. So I was fully prepared when the shit got weird to sort of be self-sustained for a little longer. And a buddy of mine who's his brother is the captain of the San Francisco Police Department where I grew up. He was like, look, Simon, I know you're not a gun guy. I know you're not really, but these are weird times and I'd feel a lot better if you had some protection down there. So I'm sending my cousin, who's the sheriff of Big Bear, to come down and help you out. So I was living with my girlfriend at the time, having no idea how to, defend myself with a gun or what to do. And he came down, the sheriff of Big Bear, started training me and my girlfriend in like how to use guns, how to reload guns, how to shoot sitting down, standing up, how to pull the trigger on the exhale. Got a shotgun and got a Mini 14, which is essentially an AR-15, and how to set booby traps around my house, how to bury food outside. I mean, no, it was full preparation for the end of the world. And I still have to this day 2 go bags, they're called, which were about $1,000 each when you got everything that was needed. And it's like water filtration device, flares, a tent, sleeping bag, the tin foil, enough to survive for 1 week. AM solar radio when the grid goes down. And so I was like fully in that doomsday prep mode, which became this sort of, I'm not that guy, but I had to become that guy because we didn't know what was going on,
Yeah.
So it was sort of like I had my own version of civil, of what that was like to really live it. And it was the most surreal, chilling, strange, thing. Anyway, and it could still happen, So I'm somewhat prepared. And again, he had me bury a gun outside.
Yep.
In case you come home and someone's in your house, you got a gun outside. It was so crazy. Like all these things my brain would never even think of. But anyway, so I had sort of a experience similar to what may happen if the shit went down.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp.
We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focused on looking for green flags in friends and partners?
And if you're not sure what
do it again. Yeah. Sorry. We often hear about red flags we should avoid, but what if we focus more on looking for green flags in friends and partners?
And if you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify green flags, actively practice them in your relationships, and embody the green flag energy yourself.
So whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, it's time to form relationships that love you back, Tim.
Hey,
It's time.
It's time. It's time. Well, have you ever used BetterHelp?
I did. I started during the pandemic. Teletherapy was really helpful, and it was a good source of connection, and I got some great advice from my therapist. So thumbs up to BetterHelp for that.
Oh, nice. And I guess to that point, BetterHelp is fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient and serving over 5 million people worldwide.
So why don't you discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp?
You visit betterhelp.com/Veep today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Veep.
And there
You're scared. Yeah, we were all scared.
Ultimately, and you see it all over this movie, like the degradation of whatever like societal code you have. And it feels like he is always kind of showing you these two things. There's a little moment that I hadn't noticed where they drive under an overpass and they're going through Pennsylvania. and spray painted on the overpass
Go Steelers?
is Go Steelers,
Yeah.
and right behind it are two bodies that are hanging from the overpass. Like he is
Eagles
putting,
fans.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's there. I don't know. Sorry.
They killed some Eagles.
But
fans.
he is like
Probably
always,
Ravens.
Yeah,
he's
probably
Baltimore
always-
and
AFC,
Pittsburgh's the
yeah,
real
AFC.
rivalry. Yeah.
He's always showing you the two things existing at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I need to give it a second watch.
It is worth it because
yeah.
last night was my second watch, and I so much more appreciated it than I did the first time.
I will say, and I, as somebody who loves it, I will also say, it like ruins your day. Like it's a hard watch.
I told Tim like I had to pause it when my kids were walking through the living room because it's so bleak and so arresting. Some of the imagery is so arresting that like it'll stay with you.
Yeah.
Like it's very disturbing.
It'll ruin your day like Scary Movie 5. I get it. It's like,
Yeah, that's the
Except for the Chris
subtext of what we
Elliott
were
part.
saying.
yeah.
The other part that I love about this movie, or the thing that's in play for me, is like essentially Kirsten Dunst is Alex Garland, the director. I suspect he identified with her because she is just documenting something and telling people this is the story, do with it what you want, in the way that a photojournalist does. Like, I hope you take something from this, but in the end, like, she dies, and then the next and she's questioning her existential thing is like, was I any good? Did I help? And then thinking of all the trauma she absorbed, like she digested so many things from her through her lens. Like you see her in that final rush to the White House, that whole action sequence of the third act. She is a wreck, and she's basically being dragged into the White House. She can't function. And then finally, when she gets in there, her instincts do kick in. And ultimately, she just dies, and her prodigy takes a photo of her death.
What she planned it earlier. She said, didn't she say, if I die, get a picture of me?
Or she
No,
says,
would you?
Would you?
And
then
she
she
says,
did,
"What
and
do
then
you
did she
think?"
delete it? I forget.
Well, no.
No.
So, yes.
I should have watched
So-
it again before.
No,
I did.
no.
No. The fact that you remember.
I
that
caught
she
all this
deletes
stuff on
a photo,
second viewing. Yeah.
So, you're absolutely. I had not thought about the idea of Alex Garland as the.
He
but
identified. I
actually-
think he wrote it with her. He probably understands that perspective more than any role in the story.
And she actually does say directly, it is our job to document so other people ask questions.
Right.
Yes.
But there is that, like, I have like a sort of larger thought about sort of Kirsten Dunst, her arc through this movie. But she takes a photo of Sammy after he dies, and she deletes it.
Oh, okay.
And
That's
there
cool.
is that part of me that does think that is the moment, like she had this prodigy comes up and sort of takes her place. She asks those questions of like, would you keep, if I got shot, would you keep taking pictures? The fact that she deletes one in a way does mean that she has that existential crisis. She has come out of it on the other side.
Yeah.
Yes.
And has come back to, in a way, come back to the world of feeling it rather than just documenting it.
Yes, and that's why she's so shooken up for that whole siege of the White House, and then her instinct kicks in at the very end.
Yeah.
But you're right, she's now being affected by all that stuff she was immune to forever. And then the girl who takes her photo in the end when Kirsten Dunst dies, she never even looks at the physical Kirsten Dunst. So she's like on the ground snapping photos as Kirsten Dunst saves her life and then gets shot. And then the girl Dunst is here on her right. She never looks to the human being.
Right.
Yeah.
She might check the monitor on her camera,
Right.
and then she just gets up for more work.
Yeah.
So one quick thing, I think there is a little part of this that, do you know the story of that there was a photographer, National Geographic photographer, who took that picture of the vulture sitting next to the emaciated, starved child in Africa. It's a very famous photo from, I think, the 70s that was talking about famine in Africa. And there is that sort of, there is that rule among photojournalists of you don't interfere. You're there to document, you don't interfere. That guy ended up committing suicide.
Wow.
And one of the things that I believe he's spoken about, he's like, one of my biggest regrets is that I never helped that kid, because it is the job to document.
Yeah.
So, okay, so this is a thing. Then again, third rewatch of this movie, there is a color distortion that Alex Garland does around Kirsten Dunst.
This is photography Tim talking now.
This is photography.
Tim grew up in a photography.
My
home.
dad's a photographer. There's this color distortion thing that happens that in a way represents, like, to me, like the trauma of it, the the trauma of what she's going through, her like the fog of war that she's in, the thing that
Is
she's
it like sepia toned? Like what is it like?
it's like
is it
around the edges you can see the color. The color is sort of separating out. You can see like the color scale in like you'll
Is this
see like
throughout the movie or in certain moments?
only in certain moments, and it is only
Interesting.
ever her. So
Okay.
and the thing is, for her, it goes away after she deletes that photo of Sammy.
Interesting.
And in the last shot, which is right on Jesse, the younger photographer, the color distortion is around her.
I got to give this a second watch.
Yeah.
There's some stuff I missed.
There is some shit in there that it's never really pointed. It's not an overwhelming thing, but here's one thing that I also noticed. You have that sort of photographic color distortion around the edges that have to deal with Kirsten Dunst specifically. But if you watch through the movie, when those like kind of Hawaiian shirt boogaloo boys are like fighting the guys in the they're like trying to take over that office building.
Yes.
The Hawaiian shirt guys.
Yes.
You can see these sprays of paint colors, bright
On the wall.
fucking blue, yellow, and red. You see those on the wall behind them. When the snipers are lying down, they have these like, it's almost like a color run, like the sort of
Yeah.
chalk that they'll throw on you in a color
Or
run.
Denali, that Indian festival where
Yeah.
they throw powdered
Yeah.
colors.
The-
Holy,
yeah.
it's called.
Holy, yeah.
Holy. Yeah.
Holy.
They have like their hair is dyed. They have those streaks of powder on them that have, and again, this is maybe me reading into it too much, but he is like throwing those colors on people who you are not with to let you know like they are in that too. Like that use of color is pointing out on everybody who is in it. He's showing you that with the color too, which I think is unbelievable. But if you watch it again, that color distortion only comes up with Kirsten Dunst, and it's when there are those moments of the worst shit is happening and how do I deal with this and how do I protect myself from it, and then it is passed on to Jesse in the very last shot of the movie.
Cool.
I
But the
think
fact that we're breaking it down this much means that it's good art. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Anything that you can talk about it afterwards and or stuff you missed. So, yeah.
I mean, but
And
again,
it's also a hard thing to like, I'm going to sit down and watch Civil War tonight. 'Cause
Yeah.
you know what's on the other side of that. It's like
It's very unsettling. Yeah.
so depressing
Yeah.
and very like, it's close to home. It's like, yep,
Yep.
I could see that,
Yep.
where that comes from.
Yep.
I could, and the part of like the president babbling on the radio throughout the story is very unsettling to me because it is sort of like Marie Antoinette saying like, well, if they can't eat bread, just let them eat cake. It's like a delusional person. He's holding radio time to say the Pledge of Allegiance. He's inviting people back into the country to
Yeah.
unify this great land. It's completely tone deaf to what's happening.
Right.
And it's very true, I'm sure, of all these leaders who have fallen throughout history. They stick to their agenda and talking points, and they think that's going to change things around them.
and as we've kind of talked about political movies, this has come up a couple times with we talked about The American President yesterday,
Scary Movie 3.
Scary Movie 3,
Escape from
these sort
New
of
York.
totemic political movies.
Oh, yeah.
They talk about, there's been a lot of talk about sort of like being president in the age of television. And I do think there is something to the fact that the first thing you see is a man rehearsing his television appearance.
Right.
Yes.
He's trying to find the way to say those words in the most powerful way that he can. The words change every time, and then you see it actually on TV where Kirsten Dunst takes a picture of it, and the words have changed again slightly. It's somebody, and I think honestly, even the casting of Nick Offerman as that part, because a great actor, but is
Yeah,
somebody
he's
who
wonderful in this.
is famous for being on television and being related to politics, who's somebody who knows about how to present themselves on television. I don't know that that's an accident either. Like, he's great for the part, but also it is this idea of somebody that like knows the medium
Yeah.
of which they got their message out, and what we can assume is led us to this.
Well, I'm glad they gave him the offer, man. Sorry. Also, yeah, it's kind of
Offerman only. He's on Offerman only.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
exactly.
gonna have like a Simon Rex supercut of fucking dad jokes.
Sorry.
This is incredible.
But I guess it's like Reagan, or Schwarzenegger in politics. Actors who, there's sort of meta something about that. In a way. I'm sure it was by design.
He has the gravitas that you buy. Oh yeah, he could be electable.
Yeah.
Nick has that.
Well, he
great
definitely
voice,
has that kind of stoic,
good head of hair.
Yeah,
he's like
he's
the
kind
prototype of what
man's man. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
he could be in the Senate like that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a clone of Nick's look in this movie in the Senate right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, like, we were talking about how this, like, it is an unsettling movie. Have you ever watched Sicario?
Yes, of course.
I love Sicario. There's a lot of really harsh stuff in that movie, but weirdly, I find that movie very comforting to watch because it is so. Every shot is beautiful. It's so perfectly put together. And I think maybe that experience is I'm distanced enough from it that I can just find comfort in the technique and the performances. Like I find it like this is like even on the third time, it kind of ruined my day when I was finished with it yesterday. Right. It is still like a deeply unsettling. I could say all the same things about the technical parts of this movie, of how it was made, how it was shot, the performances. I could say all of that in the same way that I could say that for Sicario. But this movie is not comforting in any way.
It's kind of like how this podcast ruined my day. It's a similar...
And it's early. Like we started recording at 10. You got a lot of this day left.
You're going to get a couple free waters when you leave. So it's not for nothing. I just want to say, like, off the pockets of chaos, the moment where she buys a dress in the middle of a civil war is very much just true. Like, there's this weird, like, I don't know, I'm going to buy a dress and maybe there'll be an occasion in the near future where I'll need it. That's like hope, but it's also delusion.
Right.
In a way. And I thought those moments are just so, like, well done. And then the other thing is, like, part of your job as a writer or a director is to observe reality or to observe life, but to detach yourself and use it as source material and essentially not participate in life. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you're a writer.
Yeah.
And so that's what Kirsten Dunst is. She's not participating. She's not helping the starving child who has a vulture next to them. She is just detached, and she is using it to transcribe stuff and report. And I think that's essentially what,
And even in that scene, like where Jesse, like she even kind of like chides Jesse a little bit, where she's like, I want to take your picture in this dress. And she like kind of holds there for a second.
Smiles.
And she's like, you missed the moment. And then she's like, and then Jesse makes a little joke and Kirsten Dunst smiles and she takes the picture and she's like, no, that wasn't the moment. Like she isn't, it was like she is somebody that doesn't recognize that having a small happy moment. And I think that might be the only time she smiles in the entire movie.
And I don't think we see that picture in the movie.
We never see the picture, but we do see, I think it's the only time she actually smiles.
Yeah.
That like she's like, no, that wasn't it. Like that's how deep she is in it, that she is just forgotten.
Right, she can't be present.
She can't be present.
Yeah.
She couldn't have that moment because she has been so inundated with this her whole life.
I'm going to go blow my brains out.
Yeah, that is really the fucking movie.
Oh, and
puts
just
you in.
hats off to Jesse Plemons for like 5 minutes of stealing a movie.
Yeah.
Like, awful.
How does
Go
he
ahead.
do it? No, he's just so good. It was so chilling, and he basically is so. He's always kind of good at playing the dark guy, and a lot of the stuff that I've seen him in, he's very good at that. I don't know, but this specifically was. Just something about the glasses he was wearing, and just the
I just want to throw out
just everything about it. It was just so good.
He's wearing fucking. Why is he wearing bright red?
It was like
colorful
someone
glasses?
that he killed glasses, maybe, or
Well, I'm just saying
or
this
he wants
is
to see it through rose tint. What was there?
There is. I think there is something to the idea of here is another use of an insane color.
Yeah.
We're never
All he
seeing,
sees is blood.
All he sees is blood. But you're right. There is something. Like the thing that is so creepy about him is the casualness.
Yeah.
Like he has that.
Yep.
He has
That
a
nonchalant darkness.
Nonchalant darkness.
Yeah, he's
very good at that.
He's not trying to be evil ever, and that's sort of like it makes me think of like the Zucker rules of comedy.
Yeah.
The way he plays it, it's so understated. He's not trying to intimidate anyone at any given moment or prove he's evil. he just is.
I don't know how you do that. It's
Yeah,
interesting. He nailed that, and that whole scene was. Yeah, that's what I thought the movie was. I need to watch it again, but I just remember it being a bunch of really cool moments like that, like the gas station, like that.
Mm-hmm.
I need to watch it again to see how it all ties together, because maybe that's the point. Maybe it's just a road movie essentially from A to B, and they just got to get to the White House from. Where did they start in
New York?
They started in New
Brooklyn.
York.
Yeah.
They're in Brooklyn, I think, at the very beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
It does, I think, and again, it is a big
Vignettes.
ask to rewatch it again, just because it really is so unsettling. But I just saw a clip of Jesse Plemons from Game Night. You know how he plays like the neighbor in Game Night, and
I don't think I
he
saw
I don't
okay,
remember
so
that.
it's incredibly funny.
Yeah.
He plays like a cop who's this neighbor who has this little tiny white dog. And he's not been invited to Jason Bateman and Rachel McAdams' Game Night. And they were like walking into the house, and he has like Jason Bateman has like 3 bags of Tostitos scoops. And Jesse Plemons is honestly playing this scene in Game Night with the same energy he plays in Civil War. He's like, you have a lot of Tostitos scoops. And Jason Bateman is like, oh yeah, it was 3 for 1. And he's like, I don't understand how that could be profitable for the Tostitos company. Like, it is essentially the same scene, but with different results. Like, that dude fucking rules.
Yeah, he's not. It's like not acting.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
so hard to do. It's like
Yes.
It's like he's just throwing it away for whatever reason. His demeanor and the way he is. It's he's got a good. He's got a good what would you call it? Like his vessel, him as the actors looking at him, it just works whatever he does.
Yeah.
I've never not been entertained by him.
Yeah.
Like in like Breaking Bad.
Oh.
Even that's what kind of introduced me
So
to him. Was that
awful.
his
Yeah.
first? Like,
It's
well,
kind of
no,
where I
he's-
recognized him too.
Yeah.
He was in Friday Night Lights playing like the kind of like VHS store best friend of Matt Saracen. Like, it is funny to see the like what he's known for now when he kind of started out as like, like the best friend who like kind of tells ironic jokes on Friday Night Lights. And he is incredible on Friday Night Lights. But it's so different from like the Breaking Bad thing. That was sort of like the thing that I think started the Jesse Plemons that we know now.
Right.
Have you
Yeah.
ever worked with him or come across him?
Never. I met him at a Vanity Fair party briefly, and that was it. So I barely spoke with him, but wanted to more. I kind of wish I talked to him more because I'm such a fan. But kind of one of those things where you see someone you're a fan of, you're like, you don't want to pet the lion because you want to have your fantasy. And what if we had a bad conversation and it ruined it? Like sometimes you don't want to meet your celebrity crushes.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. I don't know.
That makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Should we wrap up?
Oh yeah. We're
Is
actually
there a
right
wrap
now.
up segment or is that
Well,
it?
we're going to ask
Oh
you.
yeah, we are going to ask you. I just want to see. I'm going to go through my notes.
I'll tee up the question while you're looking. So the question is, if Nick Offerman was running for president, what do you think his platform was? Imagining what we know
his
of that.
running campaign? You mean
Yeah,
his-
what were the issues
Yeah,
that he
like-
was campaigning on, or what do you think? he
within
told
the context of the movie?
Yeah.
And
you had to
was the
guess.
civil? And this is pre-Civil War, or is this? Do you think?
I think he's on his 3rd term, so
Oh, so he changed the
we can
Constitution.
assume he changed the Constitution. In
So
that
he's
way.
a dictator. Is that what?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Probably so.
Gosh, that's I'll be honest. I'm really not educated in politics, so I don't want to sound dumb. Too late for that. So maybe something along the lines of he probably would have played into the Civil War as he's the one who can stop it, and in the end he didn't.
Yeah.
So something
he'd be
along,
like-
something
He probably,
yeah.
Like I can fix this.
He
Right.
probably created a nice us versus them conversation.
Right.
At
He would have
every
his own
stop.
MAGA slogan
Yeah.
that would be
Yeah.
"Make America
Yeah.
Survive." I don't
He
know.
stirred up hate. I'm sure he drummed up a
Yeah.
lot of hate, and he blamed a lot of people.
Right.
That
And
seems
here's
to be
the other
trick.
question: would you vote for this president?
Who's he running against?
Let's say a reality show housewife.
Ooh, which city?
Let's say Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills,
I'm just going quick.
Salt Lake.
Oh, Salt Lake.
Dallas?
Supposedly great, by the way. I've never watched Salt Lake. It's supposed to be great.
I have a feeling I would have voted for him and then been like, fuck, I fucking voted for this guy.
Early on, yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. All right.
He would have tricked me, I guess. As well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go through the notes just to see if there are any
This is great airtime for the listeners.
Oh yeah,
this
no, this
moment
is
here.
so. This is
what
I
they
could start
want.
singing or something.
That's the other part of this movie. You can sing
Okay.
anytime you want.
Okay. This is the end of the show. Can I do a callback really one more thing
Yeah.
about Leslie Nielsen though? real
Yeah.
quick? So I remember David Zucker telling me when they had him come in to read for Frank Drebin, he came in and did a comedic performance and they were like, no, Leslie, we want you to play it straight like in the movies that we've seen you in. Just read the lines straight. And he didn't understand. He's like, oh, okay. And then he read the lines totally straight. And David Zucker said they fell on the floor laughing.
Oh.
And he goes, that's all I have to do? And they're like, yeah, that's it. And that was it. And he went in there and tried to be funny, not knowing the formula. And that was just, I just wish I could have been a fly on the wall in that room to see that moment when he came in and tried to be funny and then read it straight. And then forever, he just knew to just be right here. And it's funny. It's such a great formula.
Airplane performance, like it is like sort of a Jesse Plemons
Yeah.
thing of like
He's the Jesse Plemons of comedy.
He's the Jesse
Leslie
Plemons of
Nielsen.
comedy. He's not fucking pushing it.
That's
the
right.
airplane performance,
Not putting anything on it.
just as
That's
dead
right.
on as it can be, and it's fucking brilliant.
And I remember hearing you say in the pod you had just checked out Airplane for the first time and how good it was. I mean, that movie, it does still hold up in those movies. I mean, it's almost like John Hughes movies. I go back and watch them like, these hold up. They get better. Like some formulas in movies work and some don't. It's just interesting to see what ages like fine wine and what doesn't, you know?
And you would think that Airplane would be one that would.
You would
but
think.
It absolutely.
You would
does.
think.
Absolutely does.
I would argue that I'm not surprised Airplane ages well because it seems like subtle or dry comedy is the stuff that doesn't travel well and doesn't age well. Like, I love Ben Stiller, and he is completely underneath performance when he does straight man stuff inside a comedy. I think he's amazing, and I love him. But I suspect, like, you can't always be Jesse Plemons in a comedy. Like, your role in that movie, you have to be over the top and
Right.
jumping out a window and popping up and being ridiculous for it to work. And in that environment, for that story, there can only be like one Leslie Nielsen character. Everybody else, like Anna Faris, they're pushed.
Right.
She's a ditz.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to push it in certain genres, so it doesn't always work. And I think that comedies that are a little broad or just pushed, maybe, I think they do age better.
It's interesting, and it's math. It would, if you look it up later. The
I'm gonna.
Zaz 15 Rules of Comedy, and again, it only applies to those kind of movies. It couldn't apply to someone else's movie, but
Right.
it's like math. It's like a mathematical equation that everything's math in the end.
Well, they tested it. Yeah, and you're good with numbers. So
I'm
how-
really very good at math.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there anything that you want to plug? Do you want to tell our very large audience about what you have coming up?
Well, we met on a movie we did together.
Yeah.
It's obviously probably far from coming out. It's in the editing process, but we got to meet on set of a movie called Easy's Waltz. We got to do with name drop time, Al Pacino, Vince Vaughn, Shane Gillis, Kate Mara.
Yeah.
When was this movie?
We shot like 6 months ago, maybe
Okay.
more. When did we shoot
Probably,
that?
probably would have actually
More?
right around when Civil War came out. It was probably like
What?
April of last year.
Oh my God, time doesn't make sense.
Where were you in
In
town?
Las
we were in
Vegas.
Oh, Vegas.
We were all
okay.
staying at the.
Oh, I
Wynn.
think
I.
we zoomed
you-
a couple episodes from your Vegas hotel.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
There was.
I was
man,
in South Africa and you were in Vegas.
You were in Vegas for so long.
I was there for 5 weeks. I almost lost my mind.
I was.
I almost
That's not a
started
great
Civil
town
War.
to be.
Not complaining,
stuck in.
but it was wild to live on the strip for 5 weeks. I got a lung infection from breathing the air and stuff. They had to plug me into like this machine, and then I saw a cut of the movie, and I sound so sick sometimes. Whatever, maybe it'll work. Oh, but to plug something, today, I don't know when this airs, but today in real time, a show called Mo on Netflix just came out that I did. It's a beautiful comedy that has a lot of heart. It's called Mo, M-O, and it's season 2 just premiered, and so that's out now. You could stream it. I play his enemy who steals his girlfriend. Very fun show. What else?
What's it on?
Good.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
It's one of the streamers. It's
Okay.
Netflix, I
is
think a
one
lot
the-
of people have that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
They're like an up and comer. Good for them.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it that's coming. I got a couple other things that are sort of jammed up that because of the strike and all things that are still going to be coming out at some point.
Does your podcast still live on?
It's still, yeah. Oh, yeah. I have a podcast called Nervous Rex, obviously spelled REX, and you could go listen to all 97 episodes.
That's fun.
If you're bored. Yeah, so I did that for a couple years. So I had a good time doing it. I had some really interesting guests on. I did some by myself. At one point during the COVID, I couldn't get guests, and I would interview myself as a caveman. So I would record one track as a caveman, and I would interview. I was
That's
doing
more
the
effort.
caveman.
That's
So I
more
would
effort.
interview a caveman, and then I would sort of just do this trick on the Pro Tools or whatever I recorded it on, and it was sort of improv. Like I'd ask a question as Simon Me, and then I'd answer it as a caveman, and it was just so stupid. So there's some fun stuff out
That's
there.
incredible.
That's too much
Yeah.
work.
Yeah,
We don't do that
actually
kind of
was.
work.
In the middle of the pandemic, there was a lot of downtime. So.
Oh, and real quick, just before we go out, tell us you just got an award at Sundance.
Oh yeah, I got a movie at Sundance. Actually, I should plug that. It's called Magic Farm. It's on Mubi, but it won't be out on Mubi for probably a couple months. And it's called Magic Farm. And I received an award called the Spotlight Award, which is sort of for your body of work. So that was pretty surreal
Hey,
to go to
that's
Sundance
amazing.
and get an award. And it's funny because my mom came out and my agent and my manager and. This is going to sound obnoxious, but when I won the Independent Spirit Award for Red Rocket, I went into like this blackout moment, and I forgot to thank my mom who was in front of me, my agent, my manager, which is sort of faux pas. So this time I had my agent, manager, and mom come up so I could specifically thank them to their face, for
That's
being a
great.
part of my crazy life. So that was a sweet moment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Thank you,
man.
man.
Well deserved.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that is good.
All right, so we've been Second in Command. We used to be a Veep Rewatch podcast, and now we do this. I'm Timothy Simons.
I'm Matt Walsh. Thank
You can find us. You can find us wherever you get podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. And thank you very much to our incredible guest, Simon Rex.
Thank you guys for having me.